Welcome to Celestial Insights, a weekly podcast that brings the stars down to earth. I'm your host, astrologer, coach, and intuitive Celeste Brooks. My purpose is to provide practical, unique, and insightful guidance to help you navigate the energies of the week like a boss. Hello, this is Celeste of Astrology by Celeste, and on this episode, I will discuss the astrology for the week of August 10th, 2025. You are invited to join me for a free event for Eclipse Season, where I'm going to discuss how to move through this potent time, what to expect, and I'll do hot take chart readings for as many people as I can. It will be on August 31st at noon Pacific time. You can sign up at the link in the show notes. If you can't make it live, you'll get the recording, but if you come live, you have a chance to ask questions as well as for a hot take chart reading. So I hope to see you there. Last week's episode was called The Justice League, and now we know at least one of the Justice Leagues was 50 state lawmakers from Texas who are Democrats fled the state in order to prevent redrawing of their districts by gerrymandering. And gerrymandering is when one of the political parties, in an effort to grab power, will carve out pieces of an area that is traditionally the other party's territory in order to reduce their influence and pull apart their voters and absorb them into other districts. So they left the state and went to Illinois, Boston, and New York. So 3 different places. And they left before, but as I'm recording this, on Wednesday, Mars is now in Libra. Mars rules actions, and this is a fight, and they're using diplomatic levers, legal levers, and trying to take action. Uranus is in Gemini. Uranus rules elections. Gemini has to do with communities. And then Pluto's in Aquarius to have power over groups of people. Now, so that's a grand trine in air. The air signs are humane. But as soon as Mars entered Libra, there was a bomb threat on a hotel where some of these lawmakers are. So, yeah, this is a really, really big deal and symbolic of the chaos that's going on in the United States. And this is Mars opposite Saturn, and they're both in signs they don't like, so they're in detriment. I wrote a blog. You can go to astrologybyceleste.com and read my blog. I'm calling this opposition, 2 gunslingers walk into an elegant bar, because there is this intense energy of conflict. One prevent this vote, the other make the vote happen. And so we'll see what goes on. But also, Netanyahu announced that he wants to go full bore into Gaza and take over more area. And people are protesting in the country. 600 former top Israeli military and intelligence officials have urged Donald Trump to pressure him to end the war. The United States gives Israel billions of dollars, sells weapons. If we told them we're not giving you anything else, if you don't stop this incursion, it would stop. And even the military in Netanyahu's cabinet, or whatever you call it in Israel, they're against this. It's the IDF chief of staff warned in a meeting on August 6th that seizing the rest of Gaza could trap troops and endanger hostages still there. This is before the full moon to Israel's Saturn, so we'll see what has happened since then. Your cosmic advantage begins with the Wise Skies digital calendar. With descriptions for every planetary and lunar event, all levels of astrology enthusiasts can enjoy the calendar on any device and now in many languages. With this superpower in your back pocket, you will be fully equipped to understand the astrological weather any day of the week. My good friend and collaborator, Tiffany Herlick, creates this calendar every year and I use it daily. I highly recommend it. Use my coupon code for $10 off. The code is ABC2025. Let the universe have your back with the Wise Skies Digital Astrology Calendar. The theme of this week is flooding the zone. And there are three big things I want you to think about as you navigate this week. The first thing I want to make you aware of is that Mercury stations direct at 4 Leo on Monday. Mercury entered its shadow where it passed for Leo on June 29th. So think back to what stories kind of kept coming back again since then. It went officially retrograde on July 17th or 18th, depending where you live. And the big event on that right then was the CEO and his HR lady got caught in an affair at the Coldplay concert. Leo rules recreation. There's been so many stories about recreation events, concerts, and all sorts of things. I've done 2 videos so far on Mercury retrograde this cycle on the Astrology by Celeste YouTube channel. If you want the details about this Mercury retrograde. Today, as I'm recording this, Mars entered Libra and United grounded all flights. Mercury rules transportation because they're having an issue with weights imbalances. Libra is the scales. Scales are used to balance weights and measure them. Astrology is literal, and at this moment, we don't know how long the flights will be grounded for. But if it could be through the weekend. We have a full moon in Aquarius. Aquarius rules aviation. And Mars in Libra is opposite Saturn and Neptune at the full moon in Aries. So this is an emergency situation. You can think about how Aries is like sirens going off. Potentially thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are having their travel plans impacted. Will it take till Monday, tomorrow, when Mercury goes direct for them to get planes back in the air? We'll see. Hopefully it's not that long of a story, but it could be with Mercury stationing direct. Mercury's barely moving. Thought processes are slower. There's more possibility for mistakes. But when Mercury's stationing direct, the problem goes forward, you go forward, and then it'll be okay. So I expect it will be solved, but it may take a little bit. Mercury stations direct on Israel's 10th house moon. So there's very public something we're going to see in Israel. Now, the action may already have happened around the full moon, but I wrote down a blockbuster story with explosive details about America's money could be something that hits the press, and it's related to the money we provide Israel or some kind of money story. It could be about the Gaza Riviera, this obscene plan of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu's to make everyone in Gaza, all the Palestinians, leave and then turn it into a luxury resort, this war zone. It is so ghoulish. I cannot even believe it. Ghislaine Maxwell was moved from a maximum to a minimum security prison. And I had predicted she might be pardoned. And one of the things I said was Mercury stationed retrograde in her 4th house of home, conjunct her moon, which is also symbolic of home and the North Node. She didn't get sent home, but she has made some kind of deal and she was moved to a minimum security prison in Texas with Elizabeth Holmes, who was the CEO of Theranos and defrauded investors. And so this is kind of like a country club type prison is part of her deal that she gets to go there. And the right-wing audience, there's like Fox News and these other networks are prepping them for her pardon. There's the talking points are about how she didn't really do anything bad, or like she was just caught up as a victim. And the people who were abused by Jeffrey Epstein have testified that she was an evil person who abused them as well, even sexually. So I think people are being prepped for her to be pardoned. It might not be till the end of the president's term. A congressional committee planned to have her testify tomorrow on the day Mercury goes direct, but she said she's only going to do it under terms like immunity or a pardon, terms the committee rejected. She already has some kind of partial immunity from the Department of Justice. But we'll see if there's any news about her on Monday or soon thereafter. And so now Mercury's going direct. The energy is most intense when a planet switches directions 5 days before and 5 days after. And Mercury will clear its shadow on August 25th. So you don't want to rush and do something mercurial, like sign contracts or buy something really expensive. That you want Mercury to get a little speed going. So I would wait another week if possible, if you can. But now we've got forward motion again. So the things you've revised, you've reviewed, you revisited over the past several weeks, now it's time to start putting them into action, and you will notice forward motion coming in going forward. There may be some huge stories breaking around Monday or huge news announced. And it's going to be involved with big money in some way. And I say that because the next thing I want to make you aware of is that Venus and Jupiter meet at 14 degrees of Cancer on the same day Mercury goes direct. Venus rules money, Jupiter rules wealth. They're the benefics and they add to life. Cancer is a water sign, and they're meeting on the sun of the United States is at 13 Cancer. So it's very close to the sun of the United States. So there is some big story about the country. The sun rules the leader. Is he going on a long journey? Jupiter can send people on a long journey, or is he investing in something? Now, they're conjunct the fixed star Sirius that's at 14 Cancer as well. This is the brightest star in the heavens, and it is considered favorable by the Egyptians because as it was rising, it was a signal that the banks of the Nile River were going to flood, symbolizing fertility coming back to the land. So it was something that was celebrated, and it's the brightest star except the sun. And it's called the Shining One or the Scorcher. So there could be something really big announced while they're conjunct in terms of someone could win the lottery. So get your ticket, especially if you have anything near 14 Cancer, any of the cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, and Capricorn, because Venus and Jupiter coming together could mean someone's getting it, finds out they're getting an inheritance or a promotion or a severance package. These are the kinds of things, or praise can be heaped on someone. It's some abundance of some kind. And there can also be just like a waterfalls of emotion that you experience. It could just be like this overwhelming amount of water energy as well. But there are going to be really amazing things happening for people. Like your company gets funding, and now you've got millions of dollars in an IPO or something like that. So notice those stories if you hear something or someone gives away a lot of money or takes a lot of money, could be associated with this. Now, in general, the star is considered favorably, but it's also known as the scorcher. And there's fires in lots of places, but in France, I've noticed. And with Venus and Jupiter and Cancer, both water signs, I got the image of two rivers coming together. And if anything happens, like in France, where they use water from two different sources to combat these wildfires that are threatening lots of people's homes and things, that could be something that goes on. Or you hear about a fire that's between two rivers, or there could be flooding of rivers. One of the concerns I have is about this Gaza Riviera and the United States using our wealth to do some kind of real estate deal for Donald Trump so that he can turn this war zone into a casino or whatever. Is just so horrible, so ghoulish, so awful. I hope that is not what is announced around this day, but very concerning. Now, it's also in certain cultures associated with plague and disease. So notice if you hear any stories about that. I mean, we've got problems in New York City with Legionnaire's disease. There's many people have gotten sick. I think over 20 people in Harlem. And there was just something I saw about China's having some kind of outbreak of some mosquito-borne disease, and they're bringing back some COVID protocols. So pay attention to news of disease, because one of the eclipses is in Pisces, which is a sign that can be associated with weakness of the physical body and illness when the sun is going to be at that time in Virgo. But also power over the weather is one of the symbologies of this storm. There's a great book called The Little Book of Fixed Stars by Elizabeth Hazel, where she goes into these details about the star Sirius. Sirius is also called the dog star. So be careful about dog bites. Or if you're at the dog park, be extra mindful if you see an aggressive dog. Or there could be news about Sirius XM. Howard Stern is not renewing his program, and I think he's on Sirius, but that was already announced this week. So if he makes any announcements on his program on Monday about his future plans, that would be aligned with this energy. But in general, this could be very favorable for if you've been working on something through Mercury retrograde. As you let it be released over the next few weeks, you may find that it's very successful. The last thing I want to make you aware of is that we have a last quarter moon at 23 degrees of Taurus. The moon is ruled by Venus, because Venus rules Taurus. And although the conjunction is separating, because the last quarter's moon's on Friday and they met on Monday, they're still in orb. And so there's this energy of abundance related to this last quarter moon. And the tarot card for the last quarter moon is the Seven of Pentacles, which is about delayed gratification, pause, and reflection. So if you put the work in, you may not get the reward right now, but when you get the reward, it could be quite large. An Indian warrior riding fiercely with human scalps hanging at his belt is the Sabian symbol. This gives a symbol of great force and conquest. Vengeance can create sadness. Race wars, trophies, war crimes. These are some of the symbologies that Linda Hill gives to the Sabian symbol. She wrote an amazing book about them. And 23 Taurus is on Israel's sun. So the moon is conjunct Israel's sun. So what is going on there? Very concerning with what the moves that Netanyahu is making. and the famine that's going on there. And more people are calling it a genocide. So that is gaining strength even on the right wing. Candace Owens and Margie Taylor Greene have both called it a genocide in the last week. This is something that's coming to a head about how much money the United States is giving Israel and what they are doing there with starving people intentionally and causing difficulties giving aid. And that is what many countries around the world think is going on, many people think is going on. And there's a lot of pressure for them to stop this madness. And the sun is at 23 degrees of Leo in their 10th house. So something very public is going to be going on in regards to Israel. So notice if there are any announcements. And 23 Taurus is Israel's sun, as I said. It's also the president's midheaven. So the president's midheaven is 24 Taurus. So Netanyahu and Trump are very intertwined. And this makes me wonder if there's going to be something about this Riviera project that's announced. Spike Lee has a movie that's being released that's called Highest to Lowest. And it's about a wealthy man played by Denzel Washington who lives like in a penthouse, and his son is kidnapped, and it shows him like going through subways and things. And there's a kite pattern in the sky, and I've called it Dungeons and Dragons because it has an air trine, which includes Mars. And then the tail is fire with Saturn and Neptune and Aries. So Mars is fire, and the dragons is what I feel like. This Mars opposite Saturn and Neptune. And dragons fly, Libra's an air sign. And then Saturn rules prison. So dungeons, Saturn, dragons, Mars, and Libra. And dragons breathe fire, and there's all this fire imagery. So this highest to lowest really feels like that's in line with that kite that's still in effect. And something really interesting is happening. So the day before this last quarter moon, Mars at this time is moving faster than Mercury. And so Mars sextiles Mercury. And this is unusual. Mercury normally moves faster, but is just starting to gain speed after the retrograde. So this feels like Mars, a criminal, comes and grabs Mercury and Leo, the golden child of Denzel Washington in this movie. But then on Sunday, Mercury catches up to Mars. So think about that if you go see the movie. I'm going to see it. It looks fantastic. It's Spike Lee and Denzel Washington teaming up again. It looks absolutely spectacular, and it's a thriller. And it'll be really interesting to see how that shows up. Some people were complaining about how it's getting very little promotion from its studio, even though it was selected for the Cannes Film Festival, and that this is often a problem with African-American films. And so we'll see if it has staying power in the box office, even though it didn't get a lot of promotion, or if the plot has this Mercury and Mars thing where like the hunter becomes the hunted, or the kid escapes of his own volition, or something unexpected with the kid. We'll see what happens in the movie, but I think it looks absolutely spectacular. So this moon phase family, this 27-month cycle, which now is going into its closing phase over the next 9 months, began back on May 19th, 2023, where the sun and moon met at 28 Taurus. There was a new moon. And what was seeded for you in your life back then? The first quarter moon of this cycle, 9 months later. These are called lunar phase families because it takes 9 months to grow a baby. And it also can be 9 months after you seed something at the new moon that there's some kind of big pivot or action taken with large projects. So the sun was in Aquarius and the moon was in Taurus, February 16th, 2024. The full moon of this cycle was November 15th last year. Sun in Scorpio, moon in Taurus, both at 24. This was when Donald Trump was telling us all of these ridiculous people he was going to have in his cabinet from Fox TV News, and people were just aghast at his choices and causing a lot of stress and upheaval. This is when there were big protests in New Zealand where the Maoris were protesting against the government, and that woman who stood up and did her haka dance on the floor. And this was coincided right about when Pluto went into Aquarius. So back into Aquarius for the last time. So you can think about anything that happened a couple of weeks before or after these time frames. Is there a story that's tied together in your life? Now, it's close to the fixed star Algol, so there could have been like some beheading type imagery or people losing their heads for some reason. In terms of big problems or catastrophes can often be associated with Algol. But on August 15th, the sun in Leo is squaring the moon in Taurus. So this is the closing last quarter moon of the cycle where there are lessons learned. What have you learned over the last 27 months if there is a topic that's important to you? If you are embarking on a new journey, experiencing a major life event, feeling stuck, trying to make a difficult decision, or just looking to make positive changes, astrology can provide life-changing insights. There are several ways to work with me. You can come for a 60 or 90-minute astrology consultation depending on your needs. Engage in longer-term cosmic success coaching where we work together on a 3-month basis to help you overcome blocks, improve your life satisfaction, build better relationships, accomplish your career goals, and understand yourself better using the tool of astrology. Or mystic mentoring if you're an aspiring astrologer and want help with chart analysis techniques. Go to astrologybyceleste.com to check out my offerings. If you have any questions, you can email me at celeste@astrologybyceleste.com. On Sunday, the word of the day is revelations. We start the week with the moon in Pisces. The last sign of the zodiac is mutable water. Something's always ending when the moon is in Pisces. It's a mute sign. The water signs are all mute. So this is a great time to listen to music. Some tears may be flowing. There was a full moon in Aquarius yesterday that there could have been some really big stories that are a bit emotionally shocking. Aquarius rules scientific advancements, large groups of people. With Mars opposite Saturn, like there could have been a mass arrest of something. Like I said, with the legislators, Aquarius rules groups like legislators. It'll be really interesting to see what the story is, but there may be some mourning going on about whatever happened. Mars in Libra is trying Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. They're both at 2 degrees and they're mutually applying. Mars in Libra is in the sign of its detriment, and Israel is a Libra rising. So we'll see if there's anything being done by Netanyahu that people are very angry at. When Mars went into Libra, Donald Trump put 100% tariffs on computer chips, which is going to send prices skyrocketing for not just computers, but chips are in everything, all electronics. Like your toaster probably has a computer chip in it. So hopefully he's going to chicken out on this too, but this could be a big problem for people being able to afford anything. So maybe he'll double back and maybe that will be part of what's announced. Like there's a revelation that it's going to take too long for the factories to be in place for the American people to be able to absorb this sort of big tariff. The sun in Leo is King Kun's the North Node in Pisces at 18 degrees. So he may be giving a speech about how somebody came to him crying from the group of whatever toaster makers. And so he's adjusting, King Kun's are adjusting energy, the tariff. And so people's tears of joy for the tariff be going away. But a question you can ask yourself is, what is ending, especially related to groups and organizations, because we had this big full moon. You may feel very driven to succeed in some way or put in effort. It's a soft aspect, but Mars competes and challenges, and Pluto wants to dominate. So there can be energy of two people coming together and just immediately getting into conflict. It can be a lot of words, or maybe it's like some kind of song is released. Libra rules art. That's a fight song and encouraging people to get together and stand up against oppression. Or there can be someone giving a really great speech. On Monday, the word of the day is bombshell. Mercury goes direct at 4 degrees of Leo at 12:29 a.m. The moon is conjunct the North Node on this day in Pisces. So we may be looking at a group of people who are experiencing Piscean things. Lots of water. They could be refugees. They could be people who've been deceived in some ways. They could be prisoners. These are all things ruled by Pisces. Drug addicts, mentally ill, homeless. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and it rules people who need compassion and empathy and are essentially powerless. It also could be a group of people who are spiritual. Saturn is retrograde in Aries, sextile Uranus in Gemini at 1 degrees for each of the signs. Saturn sextile Uranus, there's an opportunity for a structure to be changed completely, or maybe we'll learn a lot more about Jeffrey Epstein and what he was doing. This is what I hope this is like some billionaire or someone is unmasked who did something, and they're going to be held accountable. This is the day Venus and Jupiter meet at 14 Cancer on Sirius, the dog star. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. There could be a court case with a really large judgment where children were injured, but we'll see. I'm looking for blockbuster reporting on this day. That's a bombshell story. On Tuesday, the word of the day is dangerous. The Michael Jackson song about the girl is so dangerous was in my head. And I was thinking, ooh, Ghislaine Maxwell certainly is dangerous to Trump and the administration. The Aries moon begins at 3:32 a.m. Pacific time. Aries rules conflict. It's inspired, and it also can be like someone cracks a joke at that time. I'll be sleeping. I don't know if it happens, but Aries can be quick quips that are fun. It also rules war. So the moon will be conjunct Saturn and then Neptune, and then sextile Pluto and opposite Mars. So there can be some people who are going through Saturnian hardship where they're confused, or it's from the past because Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto are all retrograde. But then the moon is opposite Mars. That can be people angry, ready to fight. And then there's this disseminating moon at 5 Aries, which is trine Mercury at 4 Leo. So the moon is trine Mercury, that's stationing direct, and it's opposite Mars on this day. This is very explosive energy. Be careful with fire and knives. So this is 12:38 p.m. There could be fire problems that cause an evacuation, but hopefully you're really inspired. This can be great energy. Hopefully you're feeling inspired. On Wednesday, the word of the day is swoon. So watch out for dehydration. The moon in Aries, and there could just be like an oppressive heat that's putting people under threat. And the moon and Jupiter are in square, as well as the moon and Venus are in square. This can be like exclamations of emotion because Jupiter and Venus are in Cancer. And hallelujah could be something people are saying, or like when they're so hot and then the water gets turned on and they're running through the fire hydrant. That could be something you see on Wednesday. People are having fun in a city, dancing in a fire hydrant because it's so hot. Or you can see a sexy firefighter and you swoon because he's just so handsome. On Thursday, the word of the day is campaign. Somebody could give a really persuasive speech. The moon meets Chiron and then moves into Taurus at 6:21 a.m. Pacific time. So the moon meeting Chiron in Aries. People can be fired up, ready to heal a wound. Chiron's a wounded healer. And what are the resources I most value? And the moon squares Pluto in Aquarius. So this can be a lot of people feeling like their resources are under pressure for some reason. And the moon squares Mercury in Leo. I think this is a lot about fire because Mars in Leo sextiles Mercury, and Mars is moving faster than Mercury. And then Mercury in Leo, this feels like almost like Muhammad Ali, that poetic way he had of talking. This makes me feel the speech about impossible, how nothing's impossible, how you can do what you want to do. Like this is kind of speech someone can be giving that really motivates a crowd about how the government is squandering their resources in some way. There was a story that came out about how J.D. Vance had the Army Corps of Engineers increase water flow to a river so he could go rafting or canoeing or something on his birthday. It sounds pretty outrageous, but yeah, people could be fired up about something like that. On Friday, the word of the day is peace. There could be huge demands for peace at the last quarter moon, which is at 10 p.m. Pacific time. The sun is in Leo. The moon is in Taurus. They're both at 23 degrees. There's tension with a square. There can be about lessons learned and consequences that come up. Venus in Cancer is trying the North Node in Pisces. Cancer rules the stomach. This could be about a big group talking about the people of Gaza not getting enough food, and that a group makes some kind of statement or demand for peace. On Saturday, the word of the day is electric. There could be something very exciting. The moon enters Gemini at 9 a.m. And the first thing it does is meet Uranus, which is at 1 degree of Gemini. So people can be having a lot of fun. Somebody could have had a rave and they're still dancing from the night before because there's really exciting energy, electric energy as the moon comes to meet Uranus in Gemini. This can also be something about news of children. Yeah, it's news of children. So it would be amazing if something happens between now and then. That means there must be peace or peace negotiated or a ceasefire or something. That would be amazing. But with Netanyahu ramping up his attacks, we'll see what happens. But I am praying for peace, that this is going to be something that comes from the pressure that's put on Netanyahu by the people in his own country and around the world to stop this madness of this war that's been going on for almost 2 years now. And so devastating for people. And hopefully the hostages will be returned home. There was a video about a hostage who was starving that was put out by Hamas. This horrific situation hopefully will be coming to an end. We'll see what happens. So that's it for this week's episode. Feel free to email me at celeste@astrologybyceleste.com with any astrology and action stories about the week, how it showed up for you, or let me know how the daily themes are playing out for you. Take care, and I will catch you next week. Thank you for listening to Celestial Insights. To learn more about my work, please visit my website, astrologybyceleste.com, where I offer personal readings, horary consultations, cosmic coaching, group events, and classes to help guide people to higher levels of fulfillment. You can also find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook at Astrology by Celeste. If you enjoyed Celestial Insights, please help others find the show. Follow, rate it 5 stars, or write a nice review. I would so appreciate it. I'm astrologer, coach, and intuitive Celeste Brooks, and I'll be back next week.